Hello and welcome. This year's weather patterns are causing concern and bringing climate issues to the fore. Farmers in Wales have particularly felt the impact, and the National Farmers Union of Wales, NFU Cymru, has been setting out the problems very clearly. Abi Reader is NFU Cymru's deputy president. She's a third-generation mixed farmer, farming in partnership with her parents and uncle in Wenvo, just outside Cardiff. The farm is home to milking cows, sheep, beef cattle, and around 120 acres of arable. Abi is a co-founder of Cows on Tour, an open farm Sunday host, and a former NFU Cymru Wales Woman of the Year. In 2019, she was honoured by the Queen with an MBE for her services to agriculture. And she joins us now to tell us more about the problems that farmers in Wales have been experiencing. And Abi, welcome. And can I ask you first to tell us more about the weather situation in Wales this spring?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for welcoming me onto this podcast. It's very exciting to be sending messages north to friends and colleagues in Scotland. Gosh, the weather, it's so complicated at the moment. Since I've been involved with NFU Cymru, I've done so many different interviews on the weather. It's either been too wet, too hot, too dry. This year, we've had a really strange spring. It started off incredibly wet and then just went to the other extreme of very, very dry very quickly. For some farmers, that was quite good. It enabled a good planting window for people who were lambing and calving outdoors. It's been excellent weather, but actually there's been this background challenge of grass growth in early spring, actually really getting going, finding its full potential. There's been crop growth now that's been severely stunted. And we've seen this quite large gap, actually. Wales has almost been divided into three. So in the southwest, they haven't fared too badly, I suppose, close to the coast of Ireland. They seem to have picked up a little bit of rain. But as you come further inland, and I'm in the southeast, it's been really, really dry, but probably nowhere near as dry as it has been in North Wales. And typically up there, they would expect to receive between 6 and 7.5 foot of rain, which I'm sure you're very used to in Scotland. They haven't had anywhere near that. People's wells are drying up. We're in spring, well, late spring. How are people's wells drying up so soon? So it's been really strange.
You know, that's quite a contrast, isn't it? Very wet and then very dry. I was just wondering how farmers are actually coping with that.
So I suppose it's really strange. I mean, I've been farming for 20 years. And growing grass in Wales used to be easy. It just grew. As long as you put the fertilizer out or got the slurry out, whatever it was easy. I would say the last 6 to 7 years, it has been an increasing challenge. And how are farmers coping with that? Well, I suppose a lot of people are being more fleet of foot in terms of moving animals around for grazing, perhaps potentially changing some of their cropping. There's a lot more interest in things like herbal lays, looking at deeper rooting, plant varieties, especially in grasslands, but there's also different plant varieties we can have in our crops. Not that there's a lot of arable farming in Wales. It's a small proportion of what we do. But I think thinking even more long-term than that, people like me are thinking about how we can conserve water. And that would be one, maybe I need a reservoir. I never thought I would say that in Wales. And then the other one really is looking at how I can get increasing shade and help the soil to increase its water holding capacity. So I've been looking a lot at hydrological overland flow maps just to see where water is running off the farm. And then I've been doing quite a bit of work with the Woodland Trust, but also a number of scientists to see how we can do some intelligent tree planting to try and get that built into the landscape. And I never thought I would say that. I remember being at college and a tree in the middle of a field was a nightmare because it was going to cause discompaction and this much fuel and this, that, and the other. But I cannot stand watching distressed hot cows or cows that are up to their knees in mud. And I need to do something. And I suspect there's a lot of farmers out there that are thinking the same.
You know, it's interesting when you're speaking about the long term because in the past, there's been good years and bad years. It does look, does it, that this year's weather is part of something longer term, an overall change?
I think so. I mean, this time last year, people were bringing in their first cut silage almost by boat. There were people mowing in flooded fields and trying to desperately get in what they could. This year, I'm looking at pictures of people's silage clamps and they're only half full. We can't deal with that sort of volatility. We're so vulnerable to the weather. We do need to start building things in. And I think it's a case, it doesn't really matter whether you think climate change is a thing or not. So I don't think we need to get tied up with that. We just need to be aware that this climate is changing and it's really different. And we've got to be more fleet of foot and make our businesses resilient, because it's so upsetting when the weather beats you.
And you're describing situation in different parts of Wales and how it can change from one area to another. Are you getting reports of differing situations in different parts of England or elsewhere?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's always fascinating to look what's happening throughout the rest of the UK. And I was alarmed to see 4 weeks ago. So that would have been the first week of May, I suppose. Someone had put up a photo of their barley crop that was already coming into head, and chances are they'll be combining in a week. And that's just insane. And will that crop have reached its full potential? No. So there will be losses there. Then we've got people who've had failed crops. There's a lot of impacts everywhere at the moment, and it's what do you do next year just in case it happens again?
And thinking ahead too, consumers do tend to take the output of farms for granted. But I'm just wondering, if this situation continues, what effects could you see on consumers?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of consumers, food on the shelf is just a given. They walk into a shop and it's there, and I think that's a sign that farmers done an incredible job, because we deal with the front line of volatile weather, but actually a lot of other people don't see that. We can moan and talk amongst ourselves, and that's great, but we deal with it. We pull everything out of the bag and we can get on with it. But it is getting harder and harder to pull it out of the bag. And I think consumers are seeing it already. It's just happening so slowly, they're not necessarily noticing. So last year there was a shortage of salads because Spain was burning up. This year we know there's a shortage of beef because Australia have got a drought, or are still struggling through the drought that they've had in the past. And there's so many different impacts. And this again highlights why it is so important that the government invest in food. It can't become a victim, because once it starts to fall behind, it's going to be really hard to catch back up again.
Yes, this leads to the question, doesn't it, about ways forward? Does it look that there's going to have to be something coordinated, changing some changes in farming practices, some changes in government public policies?
Yeah, well, certainly, I mean, looking at the government, in all honesty, at the moment, the government need to wise up their ideas. The policies that are coming out of there are crushing the confidence of this industry. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, everybody's really feeling the effects of that. And inheritance tax clearly is a big one, but also farm support payments. And they really need to wake up now to the impacts of that. What can we do as an industry? Obviously, we need to make sure that we tell people what's happening on our farms. I mean, I'm getting ready now for Open Farm Sunday, which is this weekend. That's a really good opportunity to help people understand what is going on the front line. We need to get our voices out there and just make sure that people are very sympathetic to farming. And there's a lot of faith, there's a lot of respect in farmers. So now is the time to get our voice out there. And then obviously there's that third dimension of, well, what do we do to help ourselves? And that is embracing any research that's out there. We are a science-led organization or a science-led industry, and we need to make sure that we can embrace every little nugget of change that we can put onto our farms now to make ourselves more resilient. So there's sort of three things really there that we need to do.
Abi, that is tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you every success in your efforts.
Thank you very much.